Alright, so before we start retopologizing the mesh and bringing this all into Maya, we have to first decimate the mesh. Now the decimation master is really utilized for any type of process where you're trying to bring down the polygon count. Right now we're looking at quite a bit of polygons up here. This is a 3.1 million and total points of 8.7, including all the meshes together. So we want to try to bring that down, and utilizing this decimation plugin or decimation master, we can do that. You can actually get this from ZBrush's website, very easily download it and then of course install it, which is not that difficult. Once you go through and you play around with this, which I would definitely suggest before you apply this particular tool to your mesh, that you plan on doing a lot of detail and a lot of work. This one it's not too major, but it does help to have a good idea of how it works. Freezing borders is basically going to take the borders down here where the mesh ends and holds them in place. Now this kind of wraps around on the inside on my mesh, so I don't really have to worry about it, but I usually put it on anyway just because it helps, and you don't have to worry about it rounding off whenever we bring it down a little further. We have the pre-process current. That means it's only going to pull this actual subtool and do it, and then we have the pre-process all, which will take all of them, but we only want to do this one for now and work through it. I'm actually going to pause the video in order for it to take effect. I hope you do notice that I have masked out certain areas that have more definition to them and are like hard edges or even have a little bit more detail. So if you don't want these areas to be brought down, because it will depending on the amount of decimation that you plan on applying, then you're definitely going to have to mask these areas off, which I would suggest especially if you're using hard surfaces. And I kind of wanted to use hard surfaces on this to kind of give you a general idea how to use that. So I'm going to pause the video now, and then we're going to decimate, as you notice here, at 3.25. I don't think it's going to take effect just as yet, but we'll work on that once we get to the decimate current. And we're going to hit the pre-process now. Now that we've actually done the pre-process, we will now move into figuring out how much we're going to decimate it at, and I'm going to bring it up probably about 20%, or actually technically bring it down to 20%, or whichever way you want to look at it. I think that's pretty proficient for me. And then we're going to hit the decimate current. It shouldn't take as long as the pre-process, but I am going to still pause the tutorial in order to do this. Okay, so now we're back to the actual decimation, and as you can see, this is 664,000. I'll actually kind of close this so you can see the number up here. We've basically cut it down times 4, probably even more than that. But it actually looks fairly almost exactly the same. There hasn't been much change to it. We'll get rid of this. I'll hold down the Alt and I'm sorry, not Alt, but the Command and drag out to take the mask off. We've cut down on the actual polygon count, and we basically saved a lot. And as you can see, some of the heavier it's a bit more dense in some of these areas where we've actually used the mask. But that's kind of what we wanted. We wanted to keep the high resolution in those areas. That way when we go to retopologize those areas, they'll still show up how we wanted it to. And an anomaly that actually happens in ZBrush that I kind of have a workaround with, when you're actually pulling or scaling some of this stuff, you have to actually hold it down, and when you're done scaling, let go of the button, because it'll like throw it backwards. I don't understand that anomaly, but it does happen. You can see the tessellation in the mesh as well. But we're going to move on to the next phase after I've done all the decimation of all the pieces.